Things, where I talk about my adventures with using and subbing non-wool yarns. So welcome, I'm so glad that you are joining me here today. If you are a regular, you will notice that it has been quite a bit of time since I last recorded. It's been about 3 months since I last made a podcast. And in my last video, I think I talked about how life sometimes gets in the way of our crafting and our creative pursuits, which is okay. It happens to the best of us. And that's what happened for me. So I filmed my last video in April, at the end of April or the beginning of May, and I was doing a community theater show. So that's what I was finishing up in May, and it took up all of my time. And then in June, my husband and I did a lot of traveling. He had a conference in Italy, so I tagged along to that one because of course I did. And I had a conference in California, and so he tagged along with me to go there, which were both lots of fun. And then in July, I did another show with the same community theater, and so that took up all of my time. I was rehearsing or performing the whole time. So it's been a really busy summer for me, and now it is August and things have slowed down for at least a week or two before they ramp back up for the school year. So yeah, that's what's been going on with me and why it has taken so long for me to film again. But the good news is I did finish some projects and I have some fun things to talk about. So let's get going. So first and most importantly, I am wearing something that I made for myself. It is my Ble Tank. The pattern is by Tinderbox, or I Love Tinderbox. She makes great crochet patterns if you are a crochet garment designer. And the yarn is Dando linen, which is my favorite linen yarn that I've ever worked with, but it's also one of the most pricey. So this is the only thing I've made with it, but I really want to make some more stuff with the Dando linen. It is a chainette construction, which is really cool and makes it really easy to not have to weave in ends. You can kind of weave the yarn in together so it becomes one giant piece. But it's also super light and airy, and I love the like heatheriness of the gray. So it's on my wish list of something I would love to buy again, the Dando linen. This is also my most worn make. It is the one that has fit me the best since I finished it, and one of the only ones that has actually fit me the whole time. So it's a really great top. I did make one change in it, well, I guess two. So one change was that I did a connected double crochet, so that there's a little less airy than like a traditional double crochet. And then the other thing was that I sewed up the button band there, because it kept gaping open because it's just such a light drapey fabric. So I just kind of sewed up the button band. Yeah, it's a really great tank. Highly recommend it. Let's talk about some other things that I've made recently. The first being my Captiva Crop, which is finally done. So here is my Captiva Crop. I used the yarn, I used LaRue cotton yarn, the bamboo and linen blend, and this color is Evil Queen. It's from her like Disney Villains collection of yarns, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, and the yarn has a really, really gorgeous drape to it. So it's been lovely to wear. I've only worn it around the house so far, but been lovely to wear. Highly recommend this one. This yarn. It is a light fingering weight, so if you're not like a tiny yarn person, that's something to think about. I personally love tiny yarns because I love the way they feel on my skin, and even though it takes longer to work up, I am more comfortable in the fabric that they create. So always do what you are most comfortable with. But I made a few changes to this. So the first thing was that I skipped the slip stitches, the slip stitch rows. So between two rows and 2 rows of double crochet, let's see, there are supposed to be a slip stitch row that creates a nice little ridge. And I had made this top before, it didn't fit me very well, so this is the second chance at that. But when I made the top before, I remember getting really frustrated with the slip stitches, and so I decided to just cut those out. So what that meant was that I was doing, instead of a slip stitch row to try and make a ridge, I tried to do like front loop only or back loop only. I don't know that it particularly worked out to anything, so I think if I were you, I would just skip it. Or I think the rows work out that you could easily do a row of half double crochet instead of slip stitch, and then work in, I can't remember the back loop or the front loop, so that you again get those ridges from the half double crochet instead of a slip stitch, just slightly easier to work. It's going to change your row gauge a little bit because the half double crochet is going to be a little taller than a slip stitch, but I think it would be worth testing out in a gauge swatch to fix it. So another change that I made was that instead of doing the starting stitch that the designer recommends, oh, and I think I forgot to mention this, Murphy Made Crochet is the designer of the Captiva Crop. So she's the designer of this piece. But she recommends kind of a foundation double crochet or triple crochet to start your rows. I decided to do a stacked double crochet and a stacked triple crochet because I cannot get the foundation that she recommends. I can't figure out how to do it successfully, and I had this problem the last time I made it, so I did that as well. And I can't even find where my beginning was at this point. So like, I don't think it made that much of a difference because I can't see where like the seam is down the back because it's turned round. So you work all the way around, you join with a slip stitch, you turn and work the other way around, which I also love for crochet. So, but yeah, I can't even find where my starting stitches are. So like, it must not be that noticeable to do the stacked instead. So if you can get the foundation double and triple that she recommends, they are fabulous stitches, and they look really cool, and they do look just like a regular, but it wasn't worth it to me. Did I find it? I may have found it, but it took me like really looking to be able to find it, so not a thing that I'm worried about. I also had to add some length. If you're new here, you may not know I am 6 feet tall, so I often have to add lengths to things. So I added a little bit of length to the bust. I did like half of an extra repeat to the bust, and then I did, to create the underarms, I did foundation double crochets. Yeah, I did foundation double crochets instead of the foundation triple or foundation single crochets for the underarms. So again, because I was skipping those slip stitch rows, and she has you split on a slip stitch row, which I wasn't doing, so I kind of had to make that up, but and a little bit of extra length. One thing that I was worried about with the bodice was when I was making it up, there were a lot of ripples in where so you could easily tell where the increases were. And I feel like I noticed a lot of ripples in people's projects on Ravelry as well, and so I was a little worried about that, but it completely worked out when I blocked it. So I don't know if it's just the yarn or it just works itself out, but yeah, that completely worked itself out, which was really nice. Yeah, so I lengthened the bust. I also lengthened the body a little bit, but it ended up a little too long. The garment grew when I washed it, which I should have expected because it's a bamboo and linen, and that's what bamboo and linen does. So it's a little bit longer than I would like it to be. I'm gonna wear it a few times to decide if I want to rip back and shorten. It's really just like, I really think I could just go back to here, just like cut out the ripple and then one repeat and get it to the length that I really wanted it. I'm also like, I could just cut out the ripple and just have it end here, and I would be perfectly happy with that. But I'm gonna wear it a few times to see how I like the length, if I'm okay with a slightly longer length or if I really want it to be shorter. And then on the sleeve, I made one other change. On the sleeve, because of my lengthening of the bodice, and it's a yoke, right? The original pattern calls that you do a row of pattern on the sleeve as well, but I had already kind of reached that point on the sleeve, and so I just finished it off with a row of single crochet just to kind of make a nice border for it, easy peasy. And then in the ripple, because I was slipping the slip stitch rows, I did have a little bit of trouble with the ripple pattern. So the pattern calls for a row of ripple, and then a row of slip stitch, row of ripple, slip stitch, etc. I was skipping the slip stitches, so I was like, oh, I'll just work it backwards, it's fine. Well, I would have had to reverse the ripple pattern, which I didn't want to do. So then I tried to do the slip stitches just on that section, and I was like, oh, these are really the worst. And so I went back again. And so I ended up just doing a row of, oh, and then I thought, okay, well, I just won't do either. Instead of turning, I will just continue to work in the same direction. And then I started doing that, and it was doing this weird, like, rolly thing. So I was like, okay, I need something between the two rows, or the multiple rows of ripple. So I just did a row of single crochets. So yeah, it worked out fine. You can kind of see that there's something between the rows of double and triple, the two rows of double and then the double and the triple, but it's not that big a deal. But yeah, it's a fun pattern to make. It's just interesting enough that I don't get bored with it, which happens when I just have like tons of the same, like tons of double crochet or tons of single crochet or whatever it may be. And like I said, it fits great. My math worked out. It has a really lovely drape, and it's going to be great for August and September here in the US South. So I have to figure out what I'm going to wear under it, so that I can hopefully wear it to work. That's always it's always a thing to think about, is what goes under it when it's a nice big lacy top like this. But yeah, that's my Captiva Crop. So my other finished object is more of a fixed object. I came back to my Hazel Tank. This is another pattern by Tinderbox by Courtney Clark, and the yarn that I used was BC Garn Lino in the color Almond, and I finished this top in like March or April. Wore it a few times, and it also grew, because that is what linen does, and I just need to accept that. So the neckline was hitting a little low, the arm side, the armhole here was hitting a little low, and I wanted to adjust it a little bit more, but this is a top-down tank top, and so it's not like I could just rip back. I would have to rip out the entire thing, which I was not going to do. So I did some sweater surgery. It was not the most difficult thing I've ever done, but it was super tedious. So basically, and I have some videos that I can show you too. Basically, you pick out where you want to remove. You add lifelines in to catch the live stitches, because when you rip out in the middle of crochet, you are going to have live stitches, something that I learned, fun fact. So you add lifelines, you cut, you remove the stuff that you don't want there, and there are a couple of different ways to do it, but here's how I did it. You slip stitch, the live stitch is closed, and then I used a whip stitch to close it. Like I said, I've got some videos of that process. I tried a couple things before I went full-on sweater surgery. I tried seaming it up by hand and just having like a little seam on the underside, and I was like, don't like that. It was a little bit too thick because of the crochet. Just because crochet is just that much thicker of a fabric. I thought, oh, maybe I'll use my sewing machine and do it, and I was, no. So sweater surgery was the way that I went. It fits great now. So here are some videos of the process. You can kind of see exactly what it looked like, and then I'll share the tutorials that I used below as well, in case you ever have to do sweater surgery. All right, just stitching didn't seem to work. So here I am I'm gonna try the surgery method. This was the center of where shoulder seam would be on like an actual top. This is the beginning of the decreases, or the end of the shaping for the back. So I decided to start there, and I've got a string of waste yarn through all of the legs of the stitches to save them and kind of keep them on hold once I cut. And then same thing on this side. I've got the waste stitches, or the stitches on hold with waste yarn. The other thing that makes this difficult is because it's not just this crochet, it's also the border crochet. And that's kind of why I've been putting this off for so long. But next step will be to cut. All right, so the first side, everything's all pulled out. The extra rows are removed. I ended up doing a slip stitch over the stitches that I saved so that I had a nice even edge. And now all I have to do is stitch it up and it will be done. Okay, so a few tips. My second strap went way easier than the first strap because I learned some lessons in the first strap. So my first is the instructions that I read said to cut near the, like right next to the lifeline. Don't do that. Because then you end up with lots of like little edges that are impossible to like weave in or anything. So I just have some random knots on this side that are like super ugly. Yeah, very not pretty, but they're hiding on the wrong side, fortunately. So my recommendation is to cut exactly in the center of your two lifelines, and that way as you unravel, you will have a nice long tail that you might be able to use to do your slip stitches and your seaming. And if not, you can at least weave it in so that you don't have anything hanging out weird. So yeah, I will also say that crochet does not unravel quite as easily as knitting does when you cut in the center of it. I was really surprised by that. I thought, oh, if I just find the right end, it'll just like floop, floop, and I'll be done. No, it took a lot of like true tinking and pulling things through. And if I hadn't wanted that long end, I probably would have just cut more, but I also didn't want the little ends so that I couldn't weave in. So it was just, like I said, very tedious. Worth it because now I have a top that fits better and is not super inappropriate. But yeah, very tedious. So it took me probably the whole process took me like 4 hours once I actually decided to do the sweater surgery. So it was a long afternoon for me yesterday. But she's good. So that's my Hazel Tank post-surgery. You can see she's got a little bit of a scar, but not much. Looks just like a regular seam. So yeah, she's recovered. So my last finished object is not actually a knitting or crochet at all. It is a sewing project. Now let me tell you, I am not a master seamstress. My mother was a master seamstress. She made all of my prom dresses growing up and lots of beautiful things, but she tried to teach me to sew a few times, and I never got particularly good at it. The funniest story about that is that I was making pajama pants. She got me this kitty cat flannel, and I was trying to make some pajama pants. And I didn't want to follow the instructions, so I was like, okay, well, I'll just cut this piece out twice. That's fine. And then I'll sew it together, and it'll be pants, and it'll be great. I cut out 2 backs to the pants, and so I made double-butted pajama pants. And I don't know that she will ever let me live down the double butt pajama pants, but needless to say, that is something that sewing is not something I always enjoy doing. It is not my favorite craft. I can do it sparingly, but it's not my favorite thing to do. But I wanted to recover the throw pillows for our living room couches, and I knew that an envelope pillowcase would be super easy. So I had my mom help me pick out some fabric, and then I found some instructions online, and I recovered several pillows, but these are the 2 that I decided to show you. You basically do one giant piece of fabric, you seam the ends that are going to be your envelope fold piece, and then you just fold it and you seam up the sides and you have a nice little pillow. And it's super easy and it's super cute, and now I can easily take these pillowcases off and wash them. This one I didn't do my math quite as well, so you can see the back of it sticks out a little bit, but you can see that there's a seam here and a seam here, and then I folded and seamed up the sides, and then the pillow just like fits in there. Honestly, the math is the hardest part of this, and making sure that everything measures exactly what you need it to measure. But again, I'll share the tutorial that I used below. It was really great. yeah, and I'm really pleased with my new pillows. So a fun little project that's a little bit different from my normal stuff. So next, let's talk about works in progress. I finished a lot of things this summer, and so I haven't started a whole lot. The main project that I've been working on is a new tank, the Posy Tank by Along avec Anna, and the yarn that I'm using is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, the color Plum Rose. So here's the yarn, and here is the beginning of my Posy Tank. So the Posy Tank is worked from the bottom up. It's lace at the bottom, so I'm working on the lace right now, and you can see that it's turning out really beautifully. So there we go. Even pre-blocking and steaming. Yeah, and then it comes up and it's got kind of like a V-neck, and then I am doing, and then there are options for the straps. So I have decided to do the double knit straps, the wide ones, but tied. So that way, when this grows, I don't have to do sweater surgery again to make the straps the right length. We are not doing that again. So I figure if I have tie straps, I can just tie it where I need it. I can adjust it as needed if I want something a little bit higher, or if I want to be a little sexier and wear it a little lower. Either way it works, right? Because it's a tie strap and I can adjust it whenever I want to. So that's where I'm going with that. Yeah, super pleased with that. Yeah, like it's super early. I've been working my way through the lace pattern. The pattern comes as both a chart and a written lace, which I think is really great. I don't love a chart. I can follow a chart, but it's not my favorite thing to do. I much prefer to follow a written lace pattern if it exists. So I love that both options were included in there. I think I'm about halfway through the lace section, maybe not even that much. But I will share my project on this, or my progress on this, with you the next time I see you. Hopefully I will at least be to the stocking it for days and days and days portion of this. I'm liking the yarn. I had read some comments that people didn't feel like it glided really well. Glide, whatever that word is. And I can see if you're not using the right needles, how that could be a chore. I am using my Knitter's Pride Dreams needles, which are the smoothest wooden needles that I have ever used. And they are working great for this yarn. But I know a lot of people prefer to use metal needles with this yarn because it just doesn't slide super well if you've got a grippy wooden needle. So yeah. Okay. And then my other works in progress, I think this is going to be a work in progress for a while because I am just become obsessed with them, and that is dishcloths. So while I was traveling this summer, the original project that I was going to make wasn't quite the vibe that I wanted for travel. I like to travel light, so I'm not going to take a huge sweater with me. Like, I want something that is going to be small. I want something that is 1 or 2 skeins. And I ended up just making a bunch of dishcloths. So the really nice thing about these two is that I got to play around with different patterns and textures, and it didn't matter. So you can see in this one, I started off with like one type of stitch, and then I was like, and I just finished off with a regular like linen moss stitch, right? I was able to figure out that stitch pattern for more dishcloths. So I like that these are super quick. I like that I can do whatever texture or pattern I want to make them as interesting as I want them to be, or as boring as I want them to be. Right now I have one that's just garter on my needles because I needed something super simple to work on during the show. And then I've also been using leftover yarn as a non-wool knitter. There we go. I've been using leftover yarn. So as a non-wool knitter, I have so much cotton and linen and all of these things that's just left over, and I'm not a scrappy blanket or a scrappy sweater type of person. They're so awesome, and I so respect the people who make them because they are just so impressive, but it's just not my style, and so I'm not going to spend my time making something that's not my style. This is a great use of my leftover cotton and wool yarns, or cotton and linen yarns. Sorry, don't use wool on a dishcloth, it's just going to fill. I can throw these in the washing machine. They can go in with the rest of our dishcloths and things. They are super lightweight, super easy to carry around. I can get, depending on the size, the length of the conference session, in about an hour and 15 conference session, I can basically finish a dishcloth. So on our tours, I made like 5. On our travels this summer, I made like 5 different things because I went to my husband's conference a little bit, and then I had my conference, and so I got a lot of it done. And it doesn't matter if you mess up on the plane when it's too stressful to try and fix it. You just keep going, because who cares, it's a dishcloth. So if you know me, just wait, you're going to get all of the washcloths and dishcloths for Christmas this year, once I have completely filled up my stash. Yeah, I highly recommend them. If you, like me, have decided that socks are not your thing, but you want something that is small and portable and easy to work on, dishcloths, man, dishcloths are going to be your friend. I've had a lot of fun with them. So there are also ways that you can do corner to corner, so like a million different options. There's a basket weave one for modern daily knitting that is just, that's real cute. You can crochet them, you can knit them, you can do whatever you want. It's been a lot of fun to just have a project that is mindless, but the moss stitch is just interesting enough to keep me entertained. Yeah, I'm loving dishcloths. Who knew? Who knew that I would ever love dishcloths? All right, last but not least, acquisitions. Before our trip to Italy, I went to the yarn store hoping to find some yarn to do a shawl. I really enjoyed working on the rosewater shawl when I was traveling last year, and so I thought, oh, something like that would be perfect. I went to a yarn store in my town that has recently changed management, and when I went in asking for like cottons or linens, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that there were tons of options. It was so refreshing. The previous management of the store was not always super helpful with that, because they were a wool person and not a cotton linen person. So anyways, it was really refreshing to have a bunch of options. And what I ended up taking home was the Juniper Moon Farm Summer Solstice Paints. So here's that. And you can see that it's like a rainbow kind of effect. They had several different options of colors. This is the one that I liked the most. It also came with a free pattern when I bought it that I forgot to bring upstairs to my filming space. But yeah, so I was like, okay, that'll be great. I'll take the 2 skeins, it'll be fine. I got home and I started working on it. You can actually see here where I kind of started something. And it's just a little bit scratchy. I didn't love working with it, and I knew that if I was traveling, I wanted something that was going to be a little bit softer, and that I was going to want to pick up, because I don't tend to knit on planes. Again, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not super comfortable in a plane. I feel like I'm a squished sardine. And so I'm not going to pull out a massive knitting project on a plane. If I was going to carry it around with me, I wanted something that was soft and easy and quick and whatever. So it was just a little bit scratchy for what I wanted. That being said, I probably will finish this shawl that I started a little bit, because it is a really pretty yarn. It's a blend, right? Yeah, 48% linen, 24% cotton, 24% viscose, 4% polyester. And I think it would soften up a ton with washing. So that's also always an option, is just to wash it and make it soften up that way. But that I got before I travel. Usually I try to visit yarn stores when I travel, but I didn't make it to any in Italy. Just focus on other things. But I did when we were in California, in San Diego, and I don't remember the name of the store off the top of my head, so I'll have to put it below. But I got this Laine du Nord soft linen or soft lino. It is 100% linen, I think, or is it a linen? It's a linen cotton blend. 80% linen, 20% Pima cotton. And y'all, when they say soft, they mean soft. It reminds me of like a thinner version. It reminds me of a thinner version of Juniper Moon Cumulus. Right, that's that nice, thick, really soft. It looks like it's got a chainnet structure, which is really lovely for having a thicker yarn, but that's going to stay super lightweight and not get too heavy. I have no idea what the color is. It's color number 10. Don't know the name for it. Yeah, I think it's like a sport or a DK weight, so not quite fingering, but definitely up there. But it's really soft. So if you are someone who is scared of linen, let's go outside. If you're someone who is scared of linen, I highly recommend trying this stuff out because it is just so lovely. And I got a sweater quantity of that, so we'll see. Well, sorry, a like t-shirt quantity of that, so we'll see what I end up making with that. But yeah, really pleased with that purchase. But that's all that I have. It's been a long summer. It's been a crazy summer. I hope that you have had a lot of time to craft and enjoy yourself and make whatever the hell you want, and do it however you want. And I will see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me.